for a crowd this large. So let me work myself into this in this way. Today, we intentionally take a step towards fulfilling our destiny. It's not an end, but a continuation of serious thoughts and examinations in how to use the life of Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey, better known to the world as Frederick Douglass. Born in the village of Tuckahoe on the eastern shores of Maryland, maybe on February 14, 1818, he is nevertheless alive today. All of this started very informally in 1992 when the late Dr. Patricia Grasty Gaines of the College of Education and professor and chair of the Department of Foreign Languages and Cultures, Dr. Jerry Williams, joined me and sat around my dining room table to discover what we might do with the recent discovery that students had made. With a research day in Phillips Autograph Library, that's Phillips, the library's upstairs. The students discovered that the great abolitionist had given his last public lecture on the campus of Westchester University 19 days before he died on February 1 of 1895. Since that discovery, we have found useful places to advance our institutional goals. We've had local and international conferences and art exhibits. Since 1994, the students named the third floor of Sykes Student Union after him. A Pennsylvania historical plaque sits outside of Green Library in recognition of his personal history with this campus and the academic institute that is named for him. His speeches and writings are routinely studied in the curriculum. We have a Frederick Douglass Society that raises scholarship money and leads the county in recognizing Dr. King every January and salutes distinguished alumni. We also have the Frederick Douglass Collaborative, and if you're a member of that collaborative, please stand. Thank you. They represent the presence of Douglass Institutes on all 14 campuses in our state system of higher education. Finally, we have Douglass scholars who are our links to the future as they aspire to be professors. And finally, we have our beloved Douglass graduate assistants who labor in that vineyard as they prepare themselves for professional life in a variety of areas. So while we unveil a statue of Douglass today by the renowned sculptor Richard Blake, we have in fact been unveiling him before the educational community connected with the state system for 20 years. From Presidents Ken Perrin and Madeline Wing Adler to our own Greg Weisenstein, every dean, many faculty have been using the life of Douglass and his image to recruit and to lift the banner of justice in this journey of the American day. Frederick Douglass demanded the abolishment of slavery. the protection under the law in a lawless era when what we now call African Americans lived to sing, quote, full of the faith that the dark days have taught us. He championed the rights of women here and around the globe, the rights for Native Americans, Jews, and immigrants. If you were not free then, he was your advocate. If you're not free now, he is your voice for today. You know, if the politicians are used to that, that's fine. I'm a college professor. I'm not used to that applause. Mr. Douglass was told in slavery that enslaved culture, that he had no place at the table of humanity. The globe and the compass became his only limits. When the rest of the country sang, "Oh, say can you see?" he asked, "Why can't you see me?" He responded more publicly with the publication of the North Star in 1847, his first newspaper, with the masthead that said, "Right is of no sex. Truth is of no color. God is the Father of us all, and we are all brethren." Eventually, they would call Frederick Douglass by a number of names. Journalists would call him Mr. Editor for the 4 newspapers he published. In Washington, D.C., they called him the Sage. In diplomatic circles, they called him Mr. Ambassador for his appointment to Haiti and the Dominican Republic in 1892. And then, of course, we called him at Westchester a writer and a thinker through the persistent efforts of George Morris Phillips, who dedicated his class to knowing the best authors of his day by inviting the old human rights advocate to get out of his Barco lounger and come and speak to his class on February 1, 1895. It was his last public lecture, but the beginning of our legacy this afternoon. In this year when we commemorate the Emancipation Proclamation, the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, the Battle of Gettysburg, the murder of Trayvon Martin, what is to be the meaning of this statue and plaza? We have a clue from another visionary, the novelist Ralph Ellison, who asked in The Invisible Man, why does a stained statue look more human? Because it is being exposed to our human environment. Our tragedy, our comedy, our biases, our pretenses, it is not to the natural that we look to be guided by Douglass in D. Baptiste Plaza, but by his spirit of unrelenting honesty and fairness to have all sit at the table of humanity with all sorts and conditions of men and women. Not to just sit and eat, but to heal our brokenness. Take steps to remove our biases and to receive life abundantly. It means that the Douglass story continues today anew if you tell it. If you tell it. You are they and you tell them, visitors, students, faculty, community folk, that they will know that if they read chapters 6 and 7 of the famous 1845 narrative, the book that made him famous, they will take the first steps in knowing the meaning of justice for themselves and their worlds. It will be a struggle for progress. But reading those first two chapters, chapters 6 and 7, will provide you with steps. Our moral will and a raised consciousness of justice will begin to reveal itself as it did to Douglas. And the journey, if we all embrace the power of this plaza, will work to begin more justice in our homes, our communities, our institutions, our sororities, our fraternities, and the public space, and maybe even the world. Let this plaza be a magnet for reflection, that all who pass through it might experience a profound sense of power, and a profound sense of power and peace from one of the nation's founding fathers to push open the envelope of justice in our time. We will possibly know that this transformation has taken place when any stranger on this campus can ask any of us, what do freedom and justice mean to Frederick Douglass? Thank you very much. Faculty people work in a number of contexts: committees, more committees, more committees. But it has been one of the distinctive pleasures of my teaching career here at Westchester University to work with an extraordinary individual whose footprints, as we would say nowadays, in our study of the environment and ecology have been just really very singular in the life of Westchester University. I'd like to introduce now Professor Emeritus Mitt Joyner, who has been the principal, and I would say supreme, you know the way Coltrane says supreme, the supreme fundraiser for this event. Professor Mitt Joyner.